Okay, it's Thursday. We're working on project two this week for this. So our goal today is make sure you have a good start on project two. The first sprint of project two is due this Sunday. Right? Yeah. Um, And so you need to make sure you've got, and the first sprint I think is kind of in my vision, the UI, the basic kind of layout. How do you want this to look and stuff? Not necessarily the back end, not the data. So you might be hard coding a little list or something else, some sample data in your project, but just make sure we have the idea of the project set to go there. And then sprint two we'll be building in the back end for this and pulling data from different spots for this. And we'll talk a little bit more about this today um, here. So I'm going to spend maybe 10 minutes kind of going over some of this stuff uh, for this. And then um, we'll do a demonstration of our projects the Tuesday of Thanksgiving weekend. So we only have class that Tuesday, and then you go away. So the idea is that you'll demonstrate your project there. It doesn't have to be completely done. I'm kind of, it should be at least 75% done. Should kind of basically, run, back end should be there. Stuff should kind of work, but you might not have all the features you want of it because then the final version will be done over spring break. My hope is that I don't like to assign work over spring break, so my hope is that you'd be all done by before Thanksgiving break starts there. But I know that doesn't fit with everyone's schedule, so that's why I'm giving you over Thanksgiving break to do this stuff. Um, so as far as what you need to do in here, you need to do some sort of data handling here. Um, you can do real simple stuff like parse data from an API, bring it in here, or even parse local JSON file. I have this available because if you're still really struggling, I have an Ojibwe, an Anishinaabe language kind of cache of documents and images and stuff that I liked. I've been working on trying to make into an app. So there are some stuff there. But I think Firestore is a good option for storing data with an app like this. Although we kind of looked at it, can be kind of hard to get Firestore set up. Once you get it set up, it's I think relatively simple to use. Um, Next week, I will share some things about a local database with a library called Hive. I won't probably spend too much time. I'll have a tutorial posted there. We used to do this in this class here. So I have a learning activity on how to set up Hive for this stuff with the video. So I'll probably post that next week, and not as a learning activity, but just as a tutorial. If you want to if you want to do a local database instead of uh, one of these, a Firestore one for this. So. Um, Another thing I want to talk to you a little bit about is authentication here. So I added a link here for user authentication. That's not the one I wanted. Maybe I have two links for. Yeah, I think I have two links for Firebase authentication. One in Unit 9 here, and one in the Project 2 stuff. So I'm going to go into the Project 2 link to use authentication. I created an updated project to illustrate this and kind of see how this works as a sample project here. So if you want to see a working version of Flutter with with Firebase authentication in a database, we have that here. And I want to talk a little bit about some things you can do to make Firebase authentication easier to implement here. So in order to get this to work, we do need to, oops, I have to run my pub-get. We do need to get Firebase set up for our project there and working. Authentication can get complicated because there's all these screens you need to use. You need like a user login screen, a sign up screen there. Like you might need a change by password screen and stuff like that. And because of that, there's a package called Firebase UI Auth that gives us a lot of these just basic built-in screens, and then with themes and stuff, you can customize them here. But it provides some sort of like easy sign-on for your applications here and how this works. You have to install some stuff, initialize it, but then once you have it, you can just have your sign-in options, and you can just display a sign-in screen here and stuff like that. And so here's just the general, like when we're installing Firebase here, we can also add this Firebase UI authentication with these built-in screens for this. And then we can use these screens in our environment, so that basically we set up what's called an auth gate, where we check if they're signed in, and if they're not, we bring them to a different screen where we sign them in for this. So we add this auth gate class to our app and run everything through that here. Here's this example here that shows this. So normally your app would just create your state, open up your material app or whatever. But here we're adding some providers, and here we're just adding an email authentication provider here. And then here, rather than running our main app, we run our auth gate here. And auth gate checks it, checks Firebase authentication to see how they're signed in, and we'll display the right information. We'll have them sign in, create the sign-in widget, and have them sign in if they're not. And then we have our normal app. So this is our normal app that runs here. So the authentication basically sits kind of above your normal app to make sure their user is logged in for that here. Now, there are other ways of doing it. I really recommend, because again, we're just learning this, that you use this Firebase UI auth package for that. It simplifies having to create all these login screens and stuff. So again, and if you're working with AI, this is a very well-known package. AI certainly knows this. So if you're working with AI or asking AI, make sure you tell them I need to work with authentication. I want to use the Firebase UI auth screens for that stuff here. And then here's another example that kind of walks you through a link to this package and how it's installed. Okay, so again, Firebase authentication is easier if you use this Firebase UI auth. It has built-in screens, and you can just basically add this auth gate on top of your app, and that will make sure your users are signed in. And once they're signed in, you can get their authentication when you are writing things. So here, like, we are writing things through our database here. And one of the things we're adding is the owner's ID when we write things to the database. And then again, once we have it, we can just get the user ID and put it in the data. So when we're storing the data, we have that. And then when we're grabbing the data, we can make sure that we're only displaying here, where's the list? Here are the items. We're getting the items from the stream where the user ID is equal to the current users are logged in. So you can then filter with the where clause to only show the user's stuff. And again, you have to decide, if this is a social media app, you might want to show all users' data, all users' posts, but in a lot of apps, you're just going to want to show like your shopping list and not everyone's shopping list items, or your exercise schedule and not everyone's exercise schedule there. So you just want to limit it to the user that's logged in here with this. So that's why I have this sample that's out there. Okay. I'm going to let you work on your projects now. Go around, see if you've got an idea going and if you're done with this. Oh, one more note. So next week, we're going to be working on project 2 again and working on sprint 2, but we're also going to be transitioning to some new stuff. We're going to be working with Firebase Studio and vibe coding starting next week here. I usually don't like to switch to like a different language when we're already still finishing up one project. I find that kind of confusing, but I think it's okay here because with Firebase Studio, you're not really coding that much. You're really just building this. So we'll be using, it's called Firebase, but it's Firebase Studio here. And so it is going to be a vibe coding sort of stuff. We're seeing if we can create prompts to create apps here, and then we will drop into coding mode where we can actually see the code and do it. It works. Doesn't work great. I'll just warn you, I've been trying it out for about 4 weeks here, so I will try to walk you through ways to use your prompts to actually get it to work correctly. And in there, it's going to by default create a website with like node.js, I think it uses there, but you can use it to create like a Flutter app here. You can use it to create other things. So like we will create a React app website. And then we'll create a Flutter app with it and stuff like that. So you can create other things with it. So we'll next Tuesday, maybe Thursday, I think, because Tuesday we might, I'll see. But next week we'll start using Firebase Studio. My goal is that like next week we won't have an assignment, but we'll have a learning activity that will use Firebase Studio to do some vibe coding, and we'll do that in one of the classes next week. So, questions on any of this? Okay, I'll go around and see how you're coming with your apps and if you need help with anything.